Chatting Tracks. Let's talk music.
Hi everybody, it's Chatting Tracks. Let's talk music. Let's talk music indeed. I'm Robbie, and thanks for joining me on my little channel talking about music. I've got a real special one for you today. I sat down with none other than Nigel Clark, the legendary voice behind the band Dodgy. You know, to get this man on was an absolute treat for me. I've been a huge fan of this band since the 1990s, so I was absolutely choked that he came on. Anyway, we spoke about the inspiration behind some of the hits. We spoke about the highs and lows of the Britpop era, and also we found out what's happening for Nigel and the band moving forward. It's a great episode. Like and subscribe so you don't miss anything else, and I'll see you on the next one. Love and peace. Was your parents into music? Was your house quite musical growing up?
I'm the youngest out of all the kids I've got a brother and sister, and I was the youngest, and I was born in Redditch. Not really. My brother and sister were really into heavy rock, so Led Zeppelin were the band because they're the drummer John Bonham was like he grew up in the same sort of village as me, went to the same school, so John Bonham and that. So I kind of knew all his best friends, or his, as I knew his friends' their kids. So that was a big sort of thing in my life, and yeah, everyone was into Led Zeppelin and heavy rock. And my mum and dad, not really. I mean, I just remember hearing the Beatles when I was a kid on the radio and stuff like that. I think my first thing into music, I just wanted to be in a band from really young age. I just liked being with my mates, and I remember walking to school and I was about 7 or 8, going, "Should we be in a band when we're older?" I don't know where I got that from. And then as soon as I think I was about 14, I got a job in a record shop, and as a T-boy, and that was it. I just wanted that to be my life, really. I love records, I love music. It wasn't really pushed by my family, although my gran was a pianist, so the musicality is there, the love of music, and I don't know, not the dexterity, but yeah, just I love music, and I just drift off.
So when you was in the record shop, obviously you heard a lot of stuff. Was there an album or single that you heard that was like, right, this is really cemented my musician road now. This is what I'm going to do?
God. Yeah, I had such a so I got into music through bands like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and stuff like that, and the Jam. Obviously, I'm like mid to late 50s now, so yeah, so it was that sort of age group. But there was bands like I loved Lexicon of Love by ABC. So I wasn't just punk. I loved and stuff like that. I think the real band album that changed me was possibly The.
Wow, yeah.
In a weird way, yeah, because I just loved their music, and then I realised that he was a solo artist, and I didn't realise at the time, but yeah, I just suppose that was an influence that and then big time, the band that really sort of switched me on was R.E.M.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I went to America in 1988 with a couple of friends, and we just travelled around. We were only kids really, and R.E.M. was on the radio all the time, and it was like, the one I love, this one goes out to the one, and just love that melody, and I love that song. And then came back to England, and not many people had heard of them, and like that was it. They were my band really for a long time. I loved R.E.M. And so I think that they sort of had that impression on me, and I kind of always wanted to go to America anyway. So America will seem like the place to be really at the time. Not anymore.
It's strange, like in the in the 60s, Americans want to come to England. It seems in the 80s, all the English want to go to America. They seem to do this crossover with a 10-year bit in the middle where no one went anywhere. So.
No, exactly. It was the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah. So did you start on guitar or bass? Where did you start? What instrument?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of got a funny road. So I bought a guitar when I was I got a guitar. So I started on guitar, wasn't very good, had a few lessons, and then as soon as I could, really, as soon as I got a job, I bought like myself a drum machine and a 4-track. So looking at about 1984, 83, 84, 85, I bought a drum machine, a 4-track, some effects boxes, electric guitar. Didn't have had a keyboard, so I've always learned instruments through recording, and singing, so yeah, so I started them all off. So I've always been really interested in production. That's kind of where it is for me. But yeah, guitar is my main instrument. Yeah, got quite a few guitars.
It's like Jeff Lynne started with just a little Revox tape machine and a guitar, and he's still got this today, isn't he? He says, like, this is where I learned to produce, this is where I learned to play.
Yeah. No, totally. I feel that that's the same with me. I've just always learned the two. So yeah, they seem very hand in hand with me. That's why I like producing. I don't like mixing.
Mm.
I don't know enough about mixing. I
Yeah.
don't know the technical side of it. It's the same as mastering, the dark art of mastering, but recording, I really understand the moment. I really understand, the working out of it,
Yeah.
and recording doesn't frighten me at all. I'm not worried about, if I recorded a whole song and I listen back to it and go, don't think it's right, I'll scrap it and record it again. I don't mind doing that. That's kind of like, because you do it a lot quicker anyway the second time.
When you were younger, were you quite a prolific writer, even though you were just starting out? Did you write quite a lot? Or was it easy for you then?
What, write songs or write lyrics? I was. I mean, I don't think it's ever come that easy. I don't think songwriting is that easy. I think it's a real. I think. I don't know if it's the same for a lot of artists, but me personally, I have so many, like a ridiculous amount of song ideas and unfinished songs. Which is depressing, really, because it's every morning I wake up and go, I must finish that, and then that list starts, and there's hundreds of them. But I sort of slowly work my way through them, and it is, the pro. I've got 9. I've done 9 so far for the new Dodgy album, but I suppose I just need to quicken up a little bit, focus a little bit more. I know what I need to do, but it's whether I'll ever get round to it. I mean, and I think that the thing these days is. I go out and do gigs, and it's nice playing a few new songs, but you have to play the old ones, and new s- n- I- the environment and the industry isn't really great for recording and putting new music out, because there's you're spending all your time, and time is the value time, and I love spending time on music, but then you put it on Spotify and you get yeah, it kind of gets, you do a new song and you get, like, 200 listens in the first couple of days, and then it sort of peters off, and you're like, what am I doing this for? Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
you have to find another, or other ways of enjoying your career. So yeah, so you just, but the idea of recording and locking myself in the studio isn't the same anymore. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't got the impetus to finish things as I used to have, sadly. Do you know what I mean? Just because of the way Spotify is and stuff like that, and unless you can do something physical, and then you have to do all the stuff yourself. You have to post it all yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think the industry's changed, but it's not in a way that it's been advantageous for the artist. I think it's been more advantageous to the listener, who
Mm.
then just sees it as content rather than songs and hard effort, and trying to convey a message or something like that.
It's the same as the YouTube thing. Like, you can make a video, put it out, you get 50 views, and you work really hard on it, and you like, I love what I've just made. You got to listen to this, and people just go, okay, and just click over, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same sort of journey nowadays. It's just
10
not instrumental.
seconds. Listen, yeah, exactly. We're inundated. We're bombarded with content, and yeah, you're trying, and it's just like, yeah, do I wanna join that rat race? I don't know. I mean, I think if people wanna come and, I like playing live. I think that's where my skill is. I mean, that's where I've learned. I mean, after doing thousands of gigs, you learn that, how to be on stage, and, it's sometimes, but you're only as good as your last gig, really.
Yeah,
I still say that, there's no time to get too cocky about this. It's like you think you've got it all in your hand, and you go on stage and everything could turn around that quickly.
yeah, yeah.
So, but I do like live.
Did you start gigging at a young age? Was you playing quite young?
Yeah, I probably did my first gig when I was about 18, which
Oh,
is
wow.
not that young, really, is it? Seems young now to me now, but yeah, about 18, I did my first gig. But I was in bands before that, punk bands and stuff like that, who'd never gigged. And that was the thing. There was a lot of bands that just stayed in rehearsal rooms in the 80s,
Hmm.
and we just rehearsed. And then when I met Matthew, the drummer, he'd already got a band, and within a few weeks, I was like, we should do a gig. And so I used to always go and book the gigs, even when we moved to London,
Hmm.
and we started a thing called the Dodgy Club. And it was, yeah, it's enthusiasm to go and do. That's half of it, even more than half of it. Actually doing it,
Yeah.
going out and getting the gigs, is the thing, really. Yeah, you can write all your songs and stuff like that, but you still got to get up and go out and do it. But
I
that was
think
a lot easier then.
I think that's what's missing with a lot of artists nowadays is that I used to play in a band in the 90s. We didn't get absolutely anywhere, but we had the best one ever. But also, I think you need those gigs where the sound equipment doesn't work, the guitar player doesn't turn up, you're playing to an empty room, like people are throwing things at you. I think you need those things to toughen you up as a musician.
God, yeah, you do. I mean, and all I've had all of those. I've had all of those. Yeah, and it's like, and that's what I mean. You never know when it's going to happen. Because I mean, we I remember when we were quite successful in the UK, and we were like selling out, quite big venues
Mm.
to, sort of, I don't know, town and country club, the Forum, and then we did a tour of Germany, and we ended up down in South Germany near Munich, where like 20 people turned up, and they only turned up really to sort of stare at us and possibly fight us. And yeah, that was quite an unusual eye opener. But you just get hardened to it all. And you know, I've sort of over the years, I do gigs now, solo gigs with Chris Helm from the Seahorses.
Oh, wow.
And so we go out, and that's always good because he's a friend. It's nice going out with your friends when you're not so great on my own. I like it. I can do it, but there's always that you drive there for 5 hours. You get there, you don't know anybody. You're kind of, hi, I'm Nigel. How you doing? I'm yours, and it's like, yeah. But when you with two, or when you're with the band, you come in and you've already got, you know what I mean? You're in your
Yeah.
little space. So it's a lot easier like that. But it is what it is. It's better than working for a living.
Yeah, when there's two, you got armor with you, haven't you already?
Yeah.
So when you came down to London, is that where you met Andy? Did Andy join the band then, or was he with you before you came down?
Yeah, me and Matthew moved down to London in '88, and we put an advert in the paper, in the Loot, I think it was, and the Melody Maker, looking for Jimi Hendrix or different people that we were really into, Jimmy Page, and yeah, and we went through about 40 guitarists, and then I think the last one we saw was Andy, and so we met him, and he was like he's from Northolt in West London, and
Mm.
we lived in Hounslow at the time, so it was perfect. We'd moved down to sort of central London, and then realised that we couldn't rehearse because it was too expensive, and so we found a house with a garage out near Hounslow. Not
Right.
the beautifulest place of London, but it's all right.
Not then. Yeah.
Not there, no, not now either.
So did you have the songs for the first album sort of already written at this point, or was it when Andy came in, then you started to write for the first album?
Good question. We had a few. We probably had quite a few ideas. Like I said, they were all like half written songs on my 4-track, and then yeah, it slowly came together. And I think the Dodgy Club, and then was where we tried all these things out, and that was where we got signed. And so then you'd go into the studio with different people. Well, we went in the studio with Ian Broudie, who produced our first album, and he helped us knock our songs into shape, and he gave us a real like sort of education in how you do sort of work out, arrange your songs from intro, verse, and all
Yeah.
those sort of things. He had the experience, and that was a really brilliant move for us, because that opened a lot of, oh, you can do that, oh, we could mix that with that. And so yeah, it became very, very just I don't know, fluid. I think the writing process became fluid after meeting Ian, and so yeah. But we were only young; we didn't know what we were doing. You know, yeah. And you look back and you think, would I do that now? No, of course not. But that's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah. What was amazing about the first album, it came out in 93, wasn't it? It came out,
Hmm.
was there was a couple of things about the album, because I heard it back in the day in the 90s. I discovered you guys really early.
Hmm.
And you've got Manchester's just happened. So that's all happening. It's all about, bobbing up and down and walking backwards and forwards. You've got
Hmm.
grunge is massive at the time. Then you've got the early bits of Britpop, which I don't like Britpop, that title. I think it's awful. But anyway, you got this big, like, concave of music going on. You guys come out. The first album not only sounds fully formed, but it sounds like Cooler Shaker at the time, where you sounded like nobody else. And it was amazing to me that your album comes out and it's amazingly positive in a time when you've got like Pulp that talking about working class issues, and Manchester's about doing drugs and going crazy and stuff like that, where you were just writing about enjoying life and breathing in and out. And it just amazes me that how that album broke through in that environment. Was that a worry for you guys because you're writing something completely different to everybody else?
No, I don't. I always felt that you know, me personally, that you're on your own path, really. You don't necessarily follow. I mean, we didn't follow anybody. There was because you can't because well, for us, we couldn't. We're taking such a big risk, you know, leaving jobs, leaving families, moving to London. I mean, it's not a big thing nowadays, I suppose. It's like a kid going to university, but we didn't have that safety net. We didn't have that safety net of university. You know, it was like, you know, will we ever get employed again? Do you know what I mean? Those were the sort of risks. And did we want to? And I think so. Yeah, you kind of look in at other bands and stuff like that. But to be honest, I was just taking so much in, musically. I mean, there was also a lot of techno around in 1993.
That's
You
right.
remember, you'd come out of the rave culture, and there was a lot of techno, which was terrible. You know, I mean, in a lot, especially when they played it on the radio during daytime. I was like, why are they playing this on a 2 o'clock on a Wednesday? You know, when it's a rave music. Do you know what I mean? It's like for a
Yeah.
rave on a Saturday night. So radio kind of annoyed me, and so one of our things was we wanted to make songs that sounded good on the radio,
Mm.
like, you know, that would be 3, 4 minutes long maximum, have choruses, harmonies, melodies, be about good things, you know, or introspection, you know, whatever, but just be uplifting. And that was our sort of brief, really, and we've still got the same brief. We
Yeah.
haven't changed that at all. That's who we are, you know. We're called Dodgy for a reason, and I think that, you know, I think that we admit something, that we are all failures in this life, but, you know, you gotta look forward and you gotta be positive, you know? That's the thing.
Fantastic. I mean, the album as well, like I was saying earlier, sound fully formed. Normally, bands with studio time progress. Even Pink Floyd took till their seventh album to really get going. But
Yeah.
that first album sounds fully formed, like you've been recording for years. Was that just down to luck? Was it you've been practicing, or was it?
We did practice a hell of a lot. We practiced so much. I mean, because we had our own rehearsal room in the garage that I'd built. So we practiced a lot. And then when we went to Liverpool to record the album with Ian, there was a few sort of like Ian wanted us to do with click tracks, like a metronome, which was fine, which was
Mm,
like, but I think that in some ways that can, if you, yeah, I mean, sometimes we were a bit rough around the edges, if I'm honest. The first album sort of like cleaned us up a little bit. Do you know what I mean? The production, we came out like we've been polished with Brasso, whereas no, you know, I think we were a bit rough around the edges, which we kind of like. So we'd listen to our demos of the album, and they sounded more like Velvet Underground. Well, hopefully, rather than, you know. I don't know to say. I don't know. I don't know. It was one of those things we just found, and so it's a hard one to take. When you listen to Homegrown,
mm,
it's a very different album in production, and also the instrumentation. I think the instrumentation on the first album was like a bit synthy and, you know, a bit of the times, like it said 1993,
mm.
where you listen to Homegrown and it sounds like 1969, which is what we wanted, you know. It's like acoustics and pianos and authentic instruments and the odd synth thrown in, you know, the odd moog here and there.
Yeah, lovely. I've seen you compared to like the Kinks, the Beatles, and the Who. Does that sort of title sit comfy with you? Is that
Yeah,
all right?
totally. They when we moved to London, we were only interested in advancing the cultural identity of ourselves and where we lived and the country and who had inspired that. And like, so from the Clash to the Beatles to the Who to, you know, and not just British bands. I mean, it started off as British bands, but then we got into like Hendrix and the Doors and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Love and all these great, and it just seemed to be this period in music which was between 1966 and 1973, the magic, the golden 7 years of recording, where all the things that we loved we were in. And it's a weird one because it is still the same. It's like, you know, even though, you know, I'm still that what fascinates me. Electronic music started there, you know,
Yeah.
experimentation, psychedelia, and I love all that. I love the experimentation. Music to me, unless it's got those elements, I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
Unless it's folk music, I like folk music because of the stories or the lyric qualities, you know.
So when you get to Homegrown, like Staying Out for the Summer's probably the biggest hit on that album.
Hmm.
Were you writing differently, like you were saying earlier? Did you have a different mindset of writing like more 3-minute singles and bits and bobs like that, more poppy and
No, not really. I just think that we learnt the lesson from the first album that, you know, we if we had control, then we would limit it. So like Grassman had been written before the first album, so
Mm.
that hadn't made it onto the first album because we didn't think we were good enough to play it. So a lot no, it was they were all from the same sort of place, really. All of our record, and they still are. There's like a sort of, you know, because there's the three of us, we just put our thing on it, you know. So we know what we're doing in that respect, you know. We just want to do something great.
It's a
Always
lovely album.
something.
It's a lovely album. I love the way you used like a delay and reverb on it a lot as well to create space.
Yeah,
There's a load of that on it, and I really love that you did that. And like Grassman, I think hits harder because the way you use the delay and reverb on it, it gives it more of a sort of open sound.
yeah.
And I think it's lovely. Was Grassman autobiographical, or was it just you writing about a subject? Or
No, it was a funny one actually. So back in the day, so we used to live in Hounslow, and I used to be the sort of like Matthew and Andy would go out to work in the morning, and I would just stay at home and tidy up and get my 4-track and write songs. And
Mm,
we'd started the Dodgy Club then, so I'd go and do the posters for that and do the mailing lists, and there was always lots of things to do. And I was playing on my little piano or Matthew's little piano in the studio, and I didn't have anything to write. I didn't have anything written down for lyrics. So I went and found Matthew's book. He had a little book under his bed that he used to write things in. So
mm.
I stole it. And in there, there was this song, and it said Grassman at the top. And I think it was a sort of like poem to an ex-girlfriend or something that he missed, and it'd gone anyway. It'd gone awry, and the relationship had broken down, and we'd lived in London. So I think autobiographical a little bit on
Yeah.
his part, but he didn't know. So when he came home, he'd forgotten all about it. So when he came home from work, he used to work in a biscuit factory, and he used to bring broken biscuits home. We were really poor. I used to bring broken biscuits home, so you know, that cup of tea and broken biscuits, and I played him the song. And I'd done it. I'd written on a piano, and I'm not a great piano player, but I can get around on it. And yeah, Grassman was born, and he said, "Oh, this is amazing. This is so good." And I went, "Because where'd you get the lyrics from?" I went, "Your book." And he didn't know, and so it was really funny. So yeah, but that's how the song was born, really.
That's amazing.
It's funny.
Did living together make you a stronger band as well? Did you find that?
It did for a while. I think, like anything, it did for. Obviously, I mean, this goes back to a Beatles quote. I think that when we lived together, we all listened to the same records, we all ate the same food, we
Mm,
all played at the same time. And I think the Beatles said that, like, the Beatles ended really when they stopped listening to the same records,
yeah.
and you know, when they stopped hanging out. And I think that was really great for Dodgy up until that point. But when we all went our own separate ways, it became harder to sort of galvanize that together and bring it all together, because everyone had their own girlfriend, or you know, their own preferences. And oh, someone had like said, "Oh, this band's really good," and we felt, when at the time we didn't feel it, but I think that the Dodgy vibe was infiltrated by outsiders.
I like I said, I played in a band and we all lived together, and it was probably one of the best experiences of my younger years. You know, like you say,
Oh
you had,
yeah.
we're all working and all this sort of stuff. I'll tell you a quick story actually. What I mean, I came home one day and my friend was like you said, we're all poor, we're all living together, and people gave us furniture like they do, and we had one of those egg chairs, you know,
Oh yeah.
the 60s one, which is probably worth a fortune now. Someone gave it to us. I
Wow.
come home one day, it was the winter, and my mate was sitting outside on the doorstep, and I was like, "What's the matter with you?" And he said, "I've just seen a ghost." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, the egg chair." He was so like the sofa's here, the egg chair was there, and he said it just flicked, like someone got out of it, and he wouldn't go back in the house. He was sitting outside.
No way.
It's a true story. And some I had because it was,
And
as you
where
know,
was that? Where was it?
it's in Essex. That's down in
Essex.
Essex. But as you know, when you live as a band in a house, there's always people coming in and out, isn't it? Stuff like that. You seem to have an open door that's never locked.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but I would be upstairs sometimes when I had long hair, because I had hair then, and I'd be washing it, and someone would call my name, and I go, "Yeah." I'm thinking someone's in the door, and there'd be no one downstairs.
No way.
Yeah, just a quick story. That's sort of, we wrote a song about that as well. So
I bet we would do the same. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's just crazy. You have these sort of, and yeah, you're living on baked beans and all that sort of stuff.
And pasta, yeah, pasta and green pepper and white sauce. Yeah, that's what we used to live on.
It's
God.
wonderful. Wonderful experience.
Mm.
So Free Piece Week comes out in '96, and you've got Good Enough on it and In a Room, and like this is when I remember you guys being absolutely everywhere. Was that success comfortable for you? Was it enjoyable, or did it? Because it seemed to just come out of nowhere for even just people watching the band.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I wasn't really a massive fan of it. Really, I mean, I like the album, I think I found what I liked doing, and it was just doing what I was doing, and I didn't need anything else. I didn't need, uh, you know, yeah, it was a lot of interviews and a lot of which I don't mind doing. I'm happy to do. I think personally, at that point in time, the cracks were beginning to show in with amongst the business side of Dodgy, where we'd got a manager, and I think my relationship with him had sort of like took a turn for the worst and wasn't in a good place. Um, yeah, and I just think that I think I would have liked it to have been. We did all the great things, which was the most important thing, which to me was the music and the record sleeve. I helped design the sleeve. I got a big involvement in that. I was involved in all the videos. I was really enjoying it. And then towards the end of the campaign, when you've done the singles, it just went awry, and I just went, I'm not into this anymore. And and I wasn't, and it was just I could not. Unfortunately, I could not. I think I just had my first child, and I wanted to do the right thing, and I felt that like when I wanted to do the right thing, it was going against what everybody else wanted. So it's
Yeah,
very difficult, It's a bit, and it's still painful now when I actually think about it because there's a sadness to it because I think that we did have something really great, but then, like I said, other things got in the way of what we were trying to do. And one of the big minuses was that Dodgy were 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 good enough and all that, and In the Room were really massive in the UK, but we couldn't get released in America, and America was where I wanted to go, and
yeah,
we just couldn't get released, and no one wanted to put it out, and then someone did want to put it out. In fact, it was Michael Jackson's manager wanting to put the album out, and I was really up for him doing it. Uh, but it never materialized. It just sounded, yeah. So it just sort of like kind of, your growth was stunted,
mm,
after that album, and doing another album the same without it being put in and going to America was just like, a bit like now, really, a bit like, what's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point? I mean, everyone's got to make money, everyone's got to have a job or earn money, but you know, music, everyone thinks it's a really easy. It's not easy. Well, it's not easy. It's not
mm,
easy to write songs. It's not easy to. It takes bloody ages. It takes
mm.
months and months. I mean, this new album we're doing now, some of those songs are like 6 years old to me.
Right. Wow.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you think of the process. I mean, yeah, it's just one of those, and yeah, and some are 6 weeks old. You know what I
It's
mean? It's
embryonic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? So, yeah, but Three Piece Suite such a brilliant time in the studio. I loved it, and I remember just going, "I don't wanna stop recording.
Mm.
Let's just go and do some gigs, but I just wanna come back into the studio," because, I was on a roll. I was coming in the next day with a new idea, and by the end of the day, we'd have a new song, and it sound great.
It's an amazingly positive album. That's what I love about the album. It's like you just said, there was cracks in the armor there, but it was amazingly positive when you listened to it at the time. And like I say, you had Pulp and all this sort of stuff, and Menswear and all these other bands, and then you guys were just going, just have a party, don't worry about it. And that's what I loved about it. It was so
Yeah.
refreshing to hear.
No, totally. We were like that. I mean, we were like, I mean, the I remember it well, the 90s, and it was a very competitive time, everyone was like, they say, "Oh, were you all together?" No, not really. I mean, I remember when Oasis supported us in Manchester, actually, and about around the time of the first album, and I don't like bringing Oasis up, but I thought I had to. But like, I remember back then, it was just like Liam was quite friendly, and like I was having a chat with Liam, and they hadn't got a record deal then,
Hmm.
and but it was exactly the same as what he is now. We're the best band in the world, apart from us on the Roses. But Noel Gallagher didn't speak to anybody. He was just like,
Really?
well, he's just like he is now,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
grumpy bloke. you know, and it's like, yeah, and it wasn't very together, you know, it wasn't, you know, everyone was out for themselves. I think that was the 90s really, and then they put Britpop around it, and everyone was supposed to get on. It was
Mm.
rubbish. People didn't get on. We had our friends in different bands and stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be competitive, wasn't it? What I loved about like Good Enough is like the harmonies on the record are fantastic, and I've seen you live, and you're doing exactly the same. It's incredible how you did that. But also, you were using horns at the time, and nobody was doing horns and trumpets and that. Where was that influence to put that on? Was it just like a record you heard, or did you fancy doing
Mm,
it?
I think with the mixture of me, Andy, and Matthew. Matthew's dad, Peter, God bless him. He was a massive soul fan. So when I met Matthew when I was like 17, 18, Matt's dad was into soul music, and we sort of inherited like Bill Withers and Sly Family Stone and all these soul records. And yeah, and he just came from there really. So, and then obviously you listen to the Beatles, Strawberry Sergeant Pepper's, and you've got, you know, Penny Lane with the trumpets on and stuff like that, and Dexys Midnight Runners. So Matthew was a massive Dexys fan. So, and we all were, because that's what we used to do, just listen to records all the time. So I think that became an influence immediately, really. And so the horn section to me was like like a backing vocal harmony.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's what
definitely
they're doing
worked.
it, you know,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I also got like Earth, Wind and Fire vibes where you were using it just to push certain
mhm,
parts of the
yeah,
chorus and the verses like that, duh, all that sort of
yeah.
stuff. And it really, really works. That's what made your band so different at the time. Like nobody was doing that. It was
I
all
think we were more, I mean, they always say we made a conscious decision when we were younger, um, to 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 be a pop band, you know, as in pop, as in like the '60s psychedelic pop, you know, that sort of pop, the Beatles pop, rather than. And so when they came up with the Britpop, we were like, why have you got to put a nationalistic flag all over it? It's just a pop thing, you know. Um, and that was it really. And like I say, we were just influenced by, you know, Love and Loving Spoonful, and they'd have horns on their records, you know. So
yeah.
why shouldn't we? You know,
Blood,
it
Sweat and
wasn't
Tears.
anything to
Yeah.
do with like we wanted to sound like menswear
Mm.
ever.
I love it. I mean, I'm
So,
probably reaching now, but I always felt that like Grassman and If You're Thinking of Me were almost the same yin and yang to each other, like talking to each other. Did you ever write that way? Were you sort of thinking, actually, I'm going to address this song later, or maybe thought about something like that?
um, it's a difficult one actually. I'm trying to think now how I write a song. I normally come up with that. I think they just written at the same time. Like, If You're Thinking of Me, I remember writing that, like, in 5 minutes. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean? 10 minutes, you know, sort of. And then I remember going into the studio and the band had never heard it, and they set up a mic for me, and we worked out the click, and I played it all the way through, and sang it and played the guitar just on my own in the studio, in Wessex Studio, which is a brilliant was a brilliant studio
Wow.
in North London. And I played it all the way through. I remember while I was playing it, I got that tingle on the back of my, you know, because I hadn't played it many times. I probably played it twice, and it's, you know, and it's never. I probably never played it in its entirety. And then I got that tingle on the back of, and my hairs went up on my arm. And then when I listened back to it in the studio room, it did it again, but I wasn't playing this time. And I was like, if we captured that, so we
Mm.
captured that spine tingly thing, and I went to the guys, you can do what you want now. I've done my bit, and so, but that was another easy one to do. Those are the best ones, you know, the easy ones, but they don't come along very often.
So your first album, 21st Century Man, come out. What was the difference between writing for the band and writing solo? Was you sort of going, I might save that for the band, I'll keep this for myself, or was it you just totally right? This is just for my album now.
Uh, well, I wasn't in the band anymore.
You're gone.
I took 10 years out of the band and doing that while my kids were growing up. So I became a parent, and I became a teacher. I ran a studio, so I was quite busy. I didn't do gigs. I gave up all that for a long time actually, and I just didn't. I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel like, you know, that an acoustic guitar in my voice was what I was after.
Mm.
Took me a long time to get into that. Yeah, and 21st Century Man was just I got my own studio, and these were a bunch of songs I mean, they could easily fit on a Dodgy record. Of course, they could. I mean, they come from the same place, really. They're upbeat, they're
Mm,
positive, Yeah, so it could
yeah.
have easily been, and probably in hindsight, it should have been a Dodgy album because it had probably done a bit better. Because this is the reality: is no one knows. I mean, no one even knows who bloody Dodgy is anymore. But definitely, no one knows who Nigel Clark is. You know what I mean? It's like so yeah. I find all this though quite a challenge, and I like challenges.
Mm.
I'm sort of I like the next. I I think during lockdown. Sorry, I'm jumping a little bit, but
No, that's
during
fine.
lockdown, I realised that music has to keep going. So I learned how to do online gigs and stuff like that,
Mm,
and I really liked it. I mean, it was hard at first, but it's just having people writing messages to you while you're playing and having that conversation with people. And I really liked it, and it was different to a normal gig. And yeah, and I still think that there's something in that. I'm still looking into that, and I've got my studio here, and I've got cameras, and I still want to do that because I think it's harder for people, especially our age now, to go out into city centres. For me, it's like going into a city centre to a gig. It's like pain in the arse. I've got to pay parking. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like there's so many. But when I was younger, we'd do it all the time because I lived in the city. Now I don't. I live in
mm,
Wales. It's like, but I can beam music from here, and so once a month you could do a gig, and
mm.
there's something in it. There's something in it. I know there is. So I'm always looking for that way forward. And I think with 21st Century Man, it was my first my first release as a solo album. Um, but then you realise, there's no budget for tour support, there's no budget for marketing, advertising, and it's hard. And that's the hard reality of of life. Money.
I love the track "It's a Crime" off of that. I think that "It's a Crime." That's a great track off your album. I really love that
Thank
one.
you. Well, I played all the drums on that one as well. So
Oh
I was
wow,
that was my I hadn't played drums before. I'd sort of I had a drum kit, and I was like, but yeah, I remember that, and I recorded that in a whole day, in one day, recorded and mixed it in one day.
that's a cool. I love that song. That's like you say, that could have been a Dodgy single as well. That
Oh,
one.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
"Believe in Love" comes out as well. Is that your second album? Is
Make
that right?
Believe Love, yeah.
Sorry, "Make Believe."
It was recorded before 21st Century Man.
Was it?
Yeah, it was recorded in 2001. It was finished just before the planes hit the Twin Towers. I remember that. I
Wow.
so yeah, so it was like the 2001, yeah. So that, and then and that was the one really. I took it round a few record companies, and I had Cooking Vinyl wanted to put it out, but it was just like I had 6 people in the band, and I was the only one that drove, and it would be me picking them up, hiring a van, and it was just impossible to make it work financially because, at the time, there's just not, yeah, the business isn't on your side really. It's
Yeah.
moved on. Britpop was a thing of yesterday. This is even 2001. I mean, we're closer to Britpop 30 years later than we were 3 years after it happened. Hilarious.
That's brilliant. And your new single come out, in is it January it came out, "Life Was Richer"?
Yes.
And that's a beautiful single, by the way. It's absolutely lovely. Can we talk about the single and how that came about, how you wrote that one, and maybe what's behind it?
Um, there's a few because I released 4 songs on Spotify, and they were more of like a sort of, this is kind of an experiment really, as what you have to do. So again, those 4 songs that I put out, 4 Bags of Gold, Empty Paintings, It's Not Easy, and Life Was Richer, were a project that I did with a friend called Colin. Who actually doesn't want to be named. So, but he's a friend called Colin. I can't give you surnames on Spotify, but yeah. So he would just leave me a bunch of like lyrics that he'd written, and I would like go and write songs and record everything. I had another studio then in a barn, so I'd just like spend my days recording, and I recorded about 12 songs. This was the same time as the Dodgy album that came out, Stand Up Right in a Cool Place. And yeah, and so I just recorded those, and then I just never did anything with them. I
Mm,
just left them on a hard drive, and it was only when lockdown happened that I just thought, I need to start moving some of these old songs out and just putting them on Spotify, just just because they're better out than they are in. I'd
mm.
hate them to get, as we know, I've lost songs on hard drives because they don't work, and I go, what was on that? That was that. that was all those songs, and I've lost them. So to avoid that, I try and do, I'll try and do another 4 or 5 songs this year to Spotify. That as well as a
Fantastic.
Dodgy album. Because I've got lots of things recorded, and and I also do electronic music, so I'm quite interested. But I haven't put any of that out yet because I don't know how people are going to take that. But I suppose it's more station to station than I don't know, something else. Yeah,
I
it's
want to
got a
be a
bit more
hippie. Yeah,
electronified. Say what?
I want to be a hippie by Techno Head. It's not like that one, is it?
No, I don't do any techno. I don't. It's more, yeah. It's more like I've always been interested in. I've always had drum machines. So like when the Akai MPC came out in the early 90s, I bought one in about 96. So I've been doing drum machines and sampling for a long, long time. That's where Good Enough came from. From a drum sample.
Oh, really? Was it?
Yeah, it was originally from the Meters. It's a Zigaboo, the drummer from the Meters, Lee Dorsey. It was a drum beat, and then I sampled it, wrote the song, and then Matthew played it and played his own beat to it, but copied that sort of vibe.
That's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the new Dodgy album. I'm super excited about that one.
Yeah.
You guys are touring for the rest of the year. Where's the best place to find information about yourself and the band?
Well, we've obviously got stuff on. We've got Instagram, Dodgy UK is Facebook, and we've also got a website which is called Dodgyology. As in, like the science, the understanding of dodgyology, and .co.uk, and they're all our gigs and stuff like that, and little competitions that we do, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like it's downsized these days, but we enjoy what we do. We love getting together. It's brilliant when you just walk into the dressing room, and because we all come from because. One of the band lives in Kent, one of the band lives in South London, one of them lives in North London, one of them lives in Salisbury, and I live in West Wales. So when we all get together, and we've got a crew as well, we all get together in the dressing room. It's just lovely. It's the gang's back together again. It's your mates, It's like, and that's the best thing about it these days. It's like, and then you go on stage with that same mentality, and it's you against the world. And I've always loved that, because give anyone a break, give anyone a chance. There's always a chance.
That's what I love when I saw you live. Matt kept shouting, "Go on, Nige."
Did he?
Nigel, thanks for chatting today. I'll have links in the description to all this stuff so people can find it as well. But thank you so much for chatting. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
It's a pleasure, man. Lovely to talk to you too.